Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Bhakti Yoga class. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishnapristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. We are continuing our discussion from Srimad Bhagvatam. We are on Canto 3 and we are on chapter number 31st. I think we completed chapter 31st, right?
Which I think verse 38 was continued.
We have completed till verse number 38 as far as I know. So far we have discussed in this canto, which is
Yes, so up to
entitled,
38 we have done.
yeah, 38 we have done, yes. So Kapil Dev, he is describing the adverse and the movements of living entities. In this chapter we heard Kapil Dev explaining the growth of a embryo in the womb of the mother. Before that, Kapil Dev described how a sinful living entity, he commits sinful activities to maintain his family, and as a result of that he goes to hellish situations, he suffers, and he goes to various species of life, then ultimately comes to human body. And then while describing this human body, after this child enters the womb of a human mother, Kapil Dev starts describing the condition of devotee jiva who has practiced bhakti in the past life. When he enters the womb of a mother, what is the situation of that person? His devotee, he is remembering his 100 past lives, and he prays to the Lord to take him out of this very, very difficult situation. And he says, just take me out of this situation once, I will do your bhajan only. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in his beautiful bhajan, भूलिया तुम्हारे संसारे आसिया पे नाना विध व्यथा. So this devotee child, he prays, and then after describing the prayers of this jiva, who is a devotee, Kapil Dev continues to describe what happens after he takes birth. It starts the description of a ordinary living entity. After he takes birth, what happens? He gets absorbed in playing. He suffers in childhood, various types of distress. Then he attains boyhood. He tries to get so many things. He doesn't get. He becomes angry. He becomes very sorry. And then he grows up again, becomes a young man, starts associating with sinful people again, goes on the path of sensual enjoyment. As a result of that, falls down again into lower situations of life, goes to hell as before. And Kapil Dev describes the power of bad association in this section we were discussing. One uses all good qualities and bad association. Satyam, Shaucham, Daya, Maunam, Buddhi, Shriri, Yasha, Shama, Shamo, Damo, Bhagascheti, Yat Sangat, Yati Sanshayam. This is the 33rd verse. Kapil Dev is describing that a person, because of his association with uh, sinful people, he loses all the saintly qualities. And in this, There is no more greater bondage than association with opposite gender and association of materialistic people. Yoshit sangad yatha pumso tatha satsangi sangatah. And then he describes that the power of sensual enjoyment is so much. Nobody can avoid this. Even Brahma could not avoid this enjoyment. Even he got attracted. And then he describes in 38th verse, in 37th verse, he says, there is nobody in this world who can avoid this attachment and entanglement of association with opposite gender. तत्सृष्ट सृष्ट सृष्टेषु को न खंडित दीपमान ऋषिम नारायण ते योषिन मय्येह माया. And then he's describing the power of the Maya in the form of a woman for a man. She keeps under control even the greatest of the conquerors. Prabhupada gives the example of Julius Caesar was captivated by Cleopatra. And Prabhupada writes in the purport how only by the practice of devotional service one can come out of this entanglement. He gives the example of Haridas Thakur. Maya approached him in the middle of the night, but he didn't get affected. Even a prostitute tried to seduce him. He didn't get affected. Prabhupada quotes various very famous example of Yamunacharya. चेतः कृष्णपदारविन्दे नवनवरसधाम्नि उद्यतं रन्तुमासीत् अहोबत नारी संगमे स्मर्यमाने भवति मुखविकारा शुष्ठु निष्ठिवनं च. Okay. So therefore, Chakravarti Thakur writes, even the king entering the inner chambers is greeted by his wife. Giving me up, you go out to conquer another woman. What a rascal you are. He brings her under. She brings him under her control. So after describing this, Kapila Dev says, therefore one should not associate with opposite gender. It is very, very dangerous. We'll recite this 39th verse. Sangam na kuryat pramadasu jato
प्रमदासु जातो
yogasya param paramaru rukshu
योगस्य पारं परम् आनुरुक्ष
matsevaya pratilabdhatmalabho
मत्सेवया प्रतिलब्धात्मलाभो
bhavan mukul avadanti ya nirayadvaramasya.
वदन्ति या निरयाद्वारमस्य. One who aspires to reach the culmination of yoga and has realized his self by rendering service unto me should never associate with an attractive woman. For such a woman is declared in the scripture to be the gateway to hell for the advancing devotee.
So this is the gateway to hell. Attraction with attachment of opposite gender, association with opposite gender is a gateway to hell. Sangam na kurya, therefore one should not associate with opposite gender. Yogasya param paramarukshu. If one wants to reach the culmination of yoga, if one wants to achieve perfection, one should never ever try to associate and enjoy, get entangled in sensual pleasure. So what one should do? Mat sevaya pratilabdha atma labho. By rendering service unto me, pratilabdha, he will attain the highest perfection. Vadantiya niraya dvaramasya, because the Vedas, the scriptures, they declare association with opposite gender is a path to hell for anyone. There is another very similar verse we have heard many times. Hari Bhakti Sudhoday describes Nishkinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajanonmukhasya पारं परं जिगिमशो भवसागरस्य सन्दर्शनं विषयिणामथ योषितां च हा हन्त हन्त विषभक्षणतोऽप्यसाधु. If you want to cross the ocean of material existence, you have taken to the process of bhakti, bhagavat bhajan unmukh. Param you want to cross, पार करना चाहते हैं, जिगिमशो भवसागर. Two things you should avoid: Vishay and Vishayi, opposite gender and people who are associating with opposite gender. Beware of them. It is more deadly than drinking poison or staying in a pit full of snakes. Prabhupada writes in the purport. What is this? He focuses on this word Pratilabdha Atma Labha. What is the culmination of yoga? The culmination of yoga is full Krishna consciousness. Yoginam api sarvesham adgate anantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam samyukta tamo matah. This is the culmination of yoga. Of all the yogis, Yogina api sarvesham, of all the yogis, one who worships me, Krishna says in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, last verse. And then Prabhupada quotes another verse from 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. When one becomes freed from material contamination by rendering service, he can understand at that time the science of God. Which verse Prabhupada is quoting here? 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. One becomes freed from material contamination. Or series mein aata hai, and I'm not remembering. One becomes free from all the contaminations. In that series, this is a very famous verse. So Prabhupada writes about Pratilabdha Atma Labha. Atma means self, Labha means the gain. So what's the highest gain for a living? Sorry? So the highest welfare, highest gain of a living entity is to practice devotional service. तस्यैव हेतो प्रयतेत कोविदो न लभ्यते. ऐसा प्राप्त इसके लिए प्रयास करना है. That gain which is not available in anything anywhere in this world. What is that? Kalena sarvatra gabhira ramhasa. That is a devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. Mukunda charanam bhujam. Otherwise, happiness is there in every species of life. One gets happiness. One should not endeavor for that. तत्प्रयासो न कर्तव्यो यथा आयु वयः परम न तथा विन्दते क्षेमं मुकुन्द चरणाम्बुजं. Mukunda charana, that is the highest gain. That's the only gain we should also aspire for. It is directed that such a self-realized soul who aspires to the topmost platform should not associate with young women or for women, young man. जीवेर लालसाई त्युति धाय शिष्णोदर परायण कृष्ण नहीं पाए. If one is surrendered to belly and genitals, one cannot get Krishna. For that matter, anything of this world. This karma is not just gross sex life. Anything which is done for one's own sense gratification, that is karma. And that will not take us to Krishna. तमो द्वारम योषिताम महत सेवां द्वारम आहुर विमुक्ते तमो द्वारम योषिताम संगी संगम. Rishabdev tells in the 5th canto, if we associate with saintly people, the path of liberation is open. If we associate with opposite gender, the path of hell is open. So therefore, one should not have unrestricted association. Then he continues. Yopayati shanayirmaya yoshit deva vinirmita tam ikshetatmano mrityum tray upam vipavritam. Translation, somebody can read.
The woman created by the Lord is the representation of Maya, and one who associates with such Maya by accepting services must certainly know that this is the way of death, just like a blind well covered with grass. Hare Krishna.
So, so far, Kapila is repeatedly using the word women is a form of Maya and one should not associate, one should not accept services. And it looks very, very difficult for some people to understand why only one gender is emphasized here. So, in response to this, of course, in this verse, Prabhupada writes, Prabhupada focuses on this word just like the blind well covered with grass. If similarly, association of women begins when one accepts service from her, because women is specially created by the Lord to give service to man. By accepting her service, man is trapped. Now, after describing this, Kapil Dev tells the other side of the story. It is not that only women is Maya. He tells in the 41st verse, even man is also Maya for women. It is not just one way description, it is both ways. Because ultimately, whether one is in the body of a male or a female, the enjoyment tendency is the cause of bondage. It is not the gender per se, it is an enjoyment tendency, propensity to enjoy separately from Krishna. Both want to enjoy. So it is not that only one gender is focused here, targeted here. So in the 41st verse, he says, Ya manyate pati mohan man maya rishabhayatim stritvam sri sangata prapto vitta patya griha pradam. Translation.
A living entity who, as a result of attachment to a woman in his previous life, has been endowed with the form of a woman, foolishly looks upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, as a bestower of wealth, progeny, house, and other material assets.
यद्यं वापि स्मरणभावं त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरं तं तमेवेति कौन्तेय सदा तद्भाव भाविता. If a man remembers women at the time of death, he gets a female body. So for female, for a women, man is the form of Maya. So one should not think that, oh, only one way it is there. No, both ways. Bhagavad Gita confirms a man gets his next life according to what he thinks at the time of death. So therefore, it is the responsibility of both, not just males and both, because ultimately both have to get liberated from this cycle of birth and death. It is not about male or female, it is about getting liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Till the time a person has an enjoyment tendency, it will be very difficult to get liberated. The cycle of birth and death will go on. And Srila Prabhupada in the Purport again emphasizes how the bodies are temporary, the soul is eternal. Whatever one remembers at the time of death gets a body accordingly. Body is at rest. Swasamsi jirnani yathabhaya. Prabhupada writes here. To be either a woman or a man only involves one's bodily dress. The soul in nature is actually the marginal potency. We are all Prakriti. Prakriti means enjoyer. Supreme Lord is Purusha, the enjoyer. But when we start thinking that I also want to enjoy, then we get entrapped, then we get entangled. That's the cause of bondage. That's why we have come in this world. नित्यबद्ध कृष्ण होते नित्य बहिर्मुख नित्य samsara punje narakadi dukh. Because we turned our face away from Krishna, We are now going to various species of life, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. Ha Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna. The cycle of birth and death is going on. Sei doshe maya pishachi dand ko retare. Adhyatmik adi tapatra retare jani mare. Because of this fault of enjoyment, one gets trapped. Sei doshe maya pishachi. Because of this fault of lording over material nature, Maya Devi punishes. Why? Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, Adhidaivika Klesh. And somehow, by mercy of the devotee, Kam Krodhira Dasahiya Tarala Tikhaye Bhramite Bhramite Yadi Sadhu Vaidyapai Sadhu Vaidya. If one gets a devotee physician, so that devotee physician gives a mantra. What is that mantra? Taro Upadesh Mantre Pishachi Palay Upadesh Mantra milta hai. Krishna Bhakti Paye Tabe Krishna Nikate Aaye. One gets devotion and comes close to Krishna. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, the relationship between man and women is very complicated, but the substance is that one who aspires to ascend to the transcendental stage of spiritual realization should be very careful in accepting association of women or man, opposite gender basically. If in the stage of Krishna consciousness, however, such restriction of association may be slackened because if a man's or a woman's attachment is not to each other but to Krishna, then both of them are equally eligible to get out of the material entanglement and reach abode of Krishna. So the entire purpose is to get out of the material entanglement. Whatever way, whatever body we may be having, it doesn't matter. Prabhupada writes, a man should not be attached to women, nor a woman be attached to man. Both man and women should be attached to service of the Lord. Then they'll be liberated. So all these descriptions, they should be taken from a broad perspective, not just for one gender, it is for both. Prabhupada Chakravarti Thakur writes, just as a woman is a cause of problems for man with bhakti and jnana, man is a problem for women with bhakti and jnana. So sometimes we see some women are more spiritually inclined than men. Than men. So in that situation, man is a Maya, more of a Maya for a woman. And of course, when Srila Prabhupada, he would describe something about women, he would say, oh, women are supposed to be protected, they should be not be independent, and sometimes he would make statements just like in Bhagavad Gita also, women are less intelligent. Interestingly, none of the disciples, lady disciples of Prabhupada, they gave up practice because by reading these statements because they loved Prabhupada. Prabhupada gave them so much of love. And Prabhupada would always tell that it is not about male or female, but when one takes to Krishna consciousness, one becomes supremely intelligent. Jajanti hi sumedhasaha. Only intelligent people can worship Krishna. Nobody else can worship Krishna. So, after describing how man is also Maya for women, first he describes women is Maya for man, then he describes man is Maya for women, and then in the 42nd verse he describes how family itself is arrangement for death. For both of them, the family is itself arrangement for death. Tamatmano vijaniyat
Amatmano vijaniyat
yapatya
ati apatya grihatmakam
दैवोपसादितं मृत्यु
daivopasaditam mrityum
मृगयोर्गायनं यथा.
mrigayorgayanam yatha.
Women, therefore, should consider her husband, her house, and her children to be the arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer. Hare Krishna.
He's again describing how women should be careful. Two verses. He is describing how man is Maya for women, how family is Maya for women. He says, Tam Atmano Vijaniya. She should know only Supreme Lord. She should know that her husband, Tam, that uh, Pati, that husband, is Tam Atmano Vijaniya. One should know that it is the Maya of the Lord Himself. The form of a husband is the Maya for a woman, for a wife. And not just husband, Apatya, Griha, the house, children, they are all arrangements of Maya. They are all arrangement of external energy of the Lord. For what? Mrityu, for death. The more one gets entangled in family, my husband, my children, my house, अहं ममासौ पतिरेषु मे सुतो ब्रजेश्वरस्याखिल वित्तपासति गोप्यश्च गोप्या सगोधनश्च मे यन्माय यथा कुमति समे गति. Yashoda Mai, as she is seeing Brahmand in the mouth of Krishna, she gets this for a moment. You know, her Vatsalya was covered by Aishwarya. She started realizing, oh my God, what I was doing. I was thinking that he's my child and Nanda Maharaj is my husband. Aham mamaso pati. ये मेरे पति हैं, ये मेरे बच्चे हैं. Brajeshwarasya Akhil, I was thinking that I am the queen of Brajesh Vrindavan. Gopasya Godpya, all the cows, cowherd, all the women, all these are my citizens. Yan Maya Kumati Samagati. Oh, this was all Maya. So of course, Krishna had a different plan and something else happened only. Krishna just wanted to cover the mud in his mouth. But in doing that, Yashoda Mai got disturbed. So he ultimately covered his mouth, closed his mouth, and again put that Yog Maya cover. But what Yashoda Mai understood, for her, it was, not so conducive for her devotional service. For us, it is very, very important to understand that concept. For a woman, if she is thinking of my husband, my children, my family, my society, my house, my wealth, it is arrangement for death. And an example is given, Mrigayor Gyayanam Yatha. Deer is attracted by the sweet singing, the flute sound, and gets trapped and is killed. So we should be very, very careful. So Prabhupada writes, in these instructions of Lord Kapila, it is explained that not only the women is gateway to hell for man, man is also the gateway to hell for women. It is a question of attachment. One line is sufficient. It is a question of attachment. Who is attached? If man is attached to women, women is Maya. If women is attached to man, man is Maya. So that's how we have to be very careful, whoever we may be. Man is attracted by beauty. Women are attracted by power. That is generally said. So one should be really careful. A woman is attached to man for giving her a nice place to live, ornaments, dress, children. It is a question of attachment. As long as either is attached to others, man is dangerous for women, women is dangerous for man. What we have to do? We have to transfer that attachment to Krishna. That is Yukta Vairagya. अनासक्तस्य विषयान् यथार्हम् उपयुञ्जतः निर्बन्धः कृष्णसम्बन्धे युक्तवैराग्य उच्यते. It is not about giving up the world, it is about using the world to serve Krishna. Because we are not Gyanis. And for that matter, what we have to renounce? We only have one thing to renounce, our false ego. We have to renounce that we can renounce something. That is the only thing we have to renounce. Our conditioning, our thinking that we can renounce. Because we have nothing to renounce. That is the one thing we have to understand. Whatever we have belongs to Krishna and we have to use in Krishna's service. Prabhupada writes, man and women should live together as householders in relation with Krishna only for the purpose of discharging duties. Engage the children, engage the wife, engage the husband, all in Krishna conscious duties. Then all these bodily and material attachments will disappear. So, after giving this conclusion, otherwise, this family becomes the arrangement for death. Bhagavatam describes another place, Tavadaragādayastena Tavatkara Griham Griham Yavan Mohungri Nigado Yavan Krishna Nate Jana. If a person is not keeping Krishna in the center, Rag Adayastena, all the attachments are the thieves. And house is not a house, it is a prison house. Tavat Ragadayastena, till the time we have attachments, they'll steal away our discrimination. And our house will become prison house. In that prison house, we will be bound. Tavat kara griham, kara grih ho jayega griha. And in that griha, the illusions are the shackles. Mohongri nigadu, moha. Oh, this is me and mine. This is shackle. Yavan Krishna Natejana. So after describing all this important thing, now in the last section, he describes how to understand birth and death and how to go beyond it. That he describes in 43rd to 48 verses. The simple process of transmigration we have heard many times. Kapil Dev will describe again. Dehena jiva bhutena loka lokamanurajam
लोकालोकम् अनुवचम्
bhunjana eva karmani
भुञ्जान एव कर्माणि
karmi aviratam puman.
करोति अवित्तं पुमान्.
Translation.
Due to his particular type of body, the materialistic living entity wanders from one planet to another, following fruitive activities. In this way, he involves himself in fruitive activities and enjoys the results instantly.
Dehena dev jiva bhutena. On account of possessing a material body, loka lokan anuprajan ya brahma bhuvana loka punaravartina. Same thing is described here. He keeps on wandering in various bodies. Loka lokam anuprajan घूमता रहता है. ऊर्ध्वं गच्छन्ति सत्त्वस्था मध्ये तिष्ठन्ति राजसा जगन्यगुणवृत्तिस्था अधो गच्छन्ति तामसा. Depending on the moods one acquires, one goes to either heavenly planets or on the earthly planets or on the lower species of life, in the lower species of life. That is according to Bhunjana Eva Karmani, according to the activities. And this happens aviratam, keeps on wandering, never ends. The cycle never ends. It is a vicious loop till the time one gets the chance to practice bhakti. This never stops. Prabhupada focuses on this word Jiva Bhutena. Jiva Bhuta means a living entity who is engaged in material body is called as Jiva Bhuta. And when one is free from material body, he is called as Brahma Bhuta. Brahmabhuta prasannatma na shoshati na kankshati. Brahmabhut means when one realizes that I am not this body, I am soul, spirit, soul. Lord Chaitanya says, living entity bound up by fruitive activities, wandering throughout the universe. Which verse Prabhupada is paraphrasing here? By some chance, one gets in touch with bona fide spiritual masters, then they get seed of devotional service. Very famous verse.
Brahmanda Brahmate Kaun Bhagwan Chi. Guru
Yeah. Guru Krishna Kripa Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. Yes. So after getting this seed, what one has to do? We have heard this many times, Bhakti Lata Beach, Bhakti Lata Beach. What is Bhakti Lata Beach exactly? I think we have discussed this earlier also. I have quoted one purport of Prabhupada many times. Anyone remembers what is this Bhakti Lata Beach actually? मतलब क्या देते क्या है गुरु? गुरु और कृष्ण की कृपा से भक्ति लता बीज मिलता है, मतलब क्या मिलता है? Anyone remembers?
it is the uh, regulations and it's a wholesome of the devotional processes what we practice.
So Prabhupada describes that in Madhya Lila, I think, second chapter. Let me check. In that he says the method, rules, and regulations by which one is systematically trained in the process of devotional service. The methods, rules, and regulations. I'll just check the verse number. Madhya Lila, 19th chapter, 152 verse purport. Prabhupada writes this. The methods, rules, and regulations by which one is perfectly trained in devotional service. That's what Guru and Krishna gives us. They teach us practice. They teach us what to do. What is the method? What is the rule? What is the regulation? After getting the seed, if one sows it within his heart, Shravana Kirtana Jalai Karaye Sinchan. चलो ये तो ले लिया हमने. We learned that method, rules and regulations. उसके बाद कैसे water, how to water this बीज, the seed. Shravana Kirtana Jale. After planting the seed of devotion, we have to water it. Shravana Kirtana Jale Koray Sinchan. This is what is described in the same verse in 152 verse. This verse says माली होइया करे से बीज आरोपण श्रवण कीर्तन जले करय सिंचन. So in that purport only Prabhupada writes, what is this Bhakti Lata Beach? Very, very careful. If we are not careful, we have to, after sowing a seed, watering it, what we have to make sure the small sapling is protected from the outsiders, protected from the weeds, and it should be in the sunshine. The weeds are, what are the weeds in this practice of devotional service? Kutinati, uh, Jiva Himsan, Pratishtha Adi. There are 4 uh, weeds one should be very, very careful to avoid. Actually, this is a series of verses. I'll just, share the screen from Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are the beautiful series of verses where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is instructing Srila Rupa Goswami what we should do. So this is 19th chapter, Rup Siksha. Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching him. So in this 53rd verse, we heard this. Bhaktilata Beej means seed of devotional service. What is this Bhaktilata Beej? The methods, rules, and regulations by which one is perfectly trained in devotional service constitutes the Bhaktilata Beej. The Bhaktilata Beej is received from spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. Other seeds called Anyabhilash Beej include Karma Beej, Gyan Beej. बाकी बीज में मिलते हैं. If we associate with other people, we'll get Karma Beej, we'll get Jnana Beej. Bhaktilata Beej only Vaishnava Kripa, Guru Kripa, Krishna Kripa. And then उपजिया बाड़े लता ब्रह्मांड भेदी आए विरजा ब्रह्म लोक भेदी परव्योम पाए. Now the seed grows as one waters with Shravana Kirtana Jal. The creeper gradually grows to a point where Brahmand bhedi aaye. It can penetrate the walls of the universe also and cross the Viraja and attains Brahma Loka. Brahma is Brahman, not Brahma Ji ka Brahma Loka. Enters even spiritual world, then enters into Goloka Vrindavan, and there what happens? Tabe aaye tadupari Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna Charana Kalpa Vriksha Karyarohan. Being situated in one's heart and being watered by Shravana Kirtan, the Bhakti creeper grows more and more. In this way, it attains the shelter of the desired tree of the lotus feet of Krishna. That's the shelter everybody is searching in this world. There is no other shelter which can give satisfaction. Only one shelter. Shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. पारिजाते अंजसा लभते सारंगो अन्या न सेवते त्वदंग्रि मूलम आसाद्य साक्षात किं किं वृणीमहि. Just like the honeybee goes from flower to flower collecting few uh, drops of honey, not drops, particles of the drops. But if the bee gets parijat, doesn't have to go anywhere else. Similarly, after attaining this lotus feet of Krishna, there is no other thing to be done. And then Kaviraj Goswami describes कहाँ विस्तारित हैया फले प्रेम फल इहा माली से चे नित्य श्रवणादि जल. After attaining Vrindavan, what we have to do? Same thing we have to continue Shravanadi Jal. Although the creeper greatly expands in Golok Vrindavan planet, and there it produces love for Krishna. So this devotee is still in this material world, but his tree of bhakti has grown up. It has reached Goloka also. He has attained that perfection, Siddhi. Although remaining in the material world, the gardener regularly sprinkles the creeper with the water of hearing and chanting. And now, after describing what one can achieve, Kaviraj Goswami says what one should be careful of. यदि वैष्णव अपराध उठे हाथी माता उपाड़े वा छिंदे तारा सुखियाए पाता. But if one commits a Vaishnava aparadh, we have heard this Hati Mata. Mata is mad. Hati Mata, mad elephant offense. Matal Hati. Matal means mad elephant. What will happen? Whatever devotional service we may do, if we allow one elephant, one offense, one elephant is sufficient to destroy entire uh, garden. And mad elephant. Anybody has seen what mad elephant can do? You see, I think many years back I had one small few minutes of video clip. What is a mad elephant? So what mad elephant can do? It is so very powerful. Elephant, it is if it is tamed, it is under control. He can be a very wonderful animal. helping, doing so many things. But if the mad elephant goes out of control, in some periods in the year, under the influence of some hormones, the elephants can go mad. And in this video, you can see, this elephant is a elephant of the temple, but in the influence of madness, what one the elephant can do, just see.
വണ്ടി വിലക്കിട്ടോ അച്ഛനത് പാണി പാടുന്നുണ്ട് തോന്നുന്നു ആലേ പാണി പാടുന്നു തോന്നുന്നു ഉള്ളിപ്പോ 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 അത് കുടിക്കണടാ കൊങ്കിന് ആനറിയണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അയ്യേ
Okay, so this is a mad elephant. So if you allow a mad elephant of Vaishnava Parag, then whatever beautiful garden we have made, like years and years of devotional service, what will happen? It will be uprooted. Upadeva chinde tara sukhiyaye pata. This elephant will uproot the creeper, break it, and the leaves of the creeper will dry up. And therefore, what one should do? One should be very careful. Tate mali yatna kori kare avaran aparadha hastirayche nahaye udgam. Therefore, one should be very careful to make an fencing all around. The fencing of very, very humble dealings. Humility is a fence to avoid the offense. If we are humble, then we will be careful not to offend the devotees. It is a fence. It is a protection so that the mad elephant of Vaishnava Prad doesn't enter. So this is a problem from the outside. Now, some weeds may also grow in this Bhakti beach. Kintu yadi latara sange ute upashakha bhukti mukti vanchayat asankhya lekha. There are some creepers also. What are the creepers? Bhukti and mukti vancha. The desire for material enjoyment and liberation. They are unlimited. There are 4 types of creepers. Nishiddhachar, Kutinati, Jiva Himsan, Labha Puja Pratishtadi, Yat Upashakhagan. Some unnecessary creepers growing with the Bhakti creeper are creepers of behavior, unacceptable for those trying to attain perfection. What are these unnecessary creepers? Nishiddha Achar, diplomatic behavior. Kutinati, Kutinati means diplomacy. Nishiddhachar means behavior which is not to be exhibited by a person desiring to become perfect. Jiva himsan, unnecessarily killing. Labh, puja, pratishtha. So these are all the upashakha which we have to be very carefully avoid. Okay, so that's how Prabhupada is explaining about this Bhakti Lata Bija. One should be careful. And if one is careful to avoid all these things, then this living entity ultimately can enjoy even material world. This is called Brahma Bhuta stage. Limited condition. A living entity is called materialistic, and upon being freed from all designations, he is called liberated. He continues to describe some more things about transmigration in the next verse. जीवो हि अस्यानुगो देहो भूतेन्द्रिय मनोमय तन्निरोधस्य मरणम् आविर्भावस्तु संभवः. Translation.
In this way, the living entity gets a suitable body with a material mind and senses, according to his fruitive activities. When the reaction of his particular activity comes to an end, that end is called death. And when a particular type of reaction begins, that beginning is called birth. Hare Krishna.
So, what is birth and what is death? The process of transmigration. What is birth? What is death? Death is end of reaction of a jiva's particular activity. That is death. When a reaction of a particular activity comes to an end, and when a particular reaction begins, that is called as birth. Simple definition of birth and death. Scientists are wondering, what is birth? What is death? Simple definition. When the activity ends, particular reaction of an activity ends. Okay, death. This body is over. The reaction in this body is over. Death. Another reaction begins. That is birth. So Prabhupada quotes some verses from Bhagavad Gita, how living entities wandering in the cycle. Brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. And whatever one sees, whatever one does in the entire lifespan, Prabhupada writes, it is like a flash. It is a long film spool of actions and reactions. Our entire existence in this material world, it is like a pool of actions and reactions. And in this pool of action and reactions, one life is like a flash only. It's like in a movie screen, one flash. That's it. So Prabhupada quotes how one goes from child to old, child to young to old and dies. And everything is happening under the influence of time factor based on what we do, what we desire. कब से चल रहा है nobody knows. अनादि कर्म फले परिभव जले. Anadi karma phale. Prabhupada quotes that. Nobody can trace. You know the famous question, when we fell in this material world, कब गिर गए? You know, this question has costed many devotees. Many devotees have left ISKCON, left Prabhupada, thinking that Prabhupada is not telling us this one answer. Why we came here? When we came here? Prabhupada would always tell, what is the point in asking this question? Just go back and find out. And devotees, and some people would be thinking, well, maybe Prabhupada is trying to avoid this question. He doesn't want to tell us, or he doesn't know the answer. That's why he's telling, अरे क्या फायदा पूछ के जाओ और पता कर लो ना. But the important reason is why Prabhupada said that. Why the Vaishnav Poets tell Anadi, "Tak kab ho gaya ye?" Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that in Jaiva Dharma. In our conditioned mind, we cannot understand spiritual time. Our conception of time is bound by past, present, and future. We cannot think apart from past, present, and future. But spiritual world is characterized by, it is conspicuous that there is no time there. How is it possible that time is not there? There is all present, no past, no future. It is inconceivable for the conditioned soul to understand this. Therefore, this question, when means there was a time when we were with the spiritual, with Krishna in the spiritual world, then only we fell down. Na? So, kab gir gaye? We cannot understand. We are conditioned by this, past, present, and future. So, therefore, our acharyas, they always told, please don't try to find out. Even if I tell you, you will not be able to understand. So therefore, get purified, go back, and then you will come to me. So therefore, Anadi Karma Phale, since millennia, since immemorial time, it is going on. But by the practice of devotional service, we can go out. Prabhupada writes, we have seen the example in the life of Narad Muni. In one millennium, he was son of maid servant. In next millennium, he became a great sage. So this cycle may go on millennium after millennium. But by the practice of devotional service, one can get out of the cycle of birth and death. He continues in 45th and 46th verses, same principles of death and birth. Somebody can read the translation, please.
When the eye lose their power to see color or form due to morbid affection of the optic nerve, the sense of sight becomes dead-ended. The living entity, who is the seer of both the eyes and the sight, loses his power of vision. In the same way, when the physical body, the place where perception of object occurs, is rendered incapable of perceiving that is known as death. When one begins to view the physical body as one's very self, that is called birth.
So the example is given just like the eyeball, the gross matter, the gross, the eyes, that is called as netra. When the gross eye is not able to see something, subtle eye also cannot see. Subtle eye is chakshu. So the subtle eye is dependent on the gross eye. And we have heard in the third canto, in the second canto, how uh, the gross eye, the gross sense organ, and the subtle sense organ, and the sense devata. These three things have to be there in place for a particular action to be done. If somebody wants to see, first the gross eye if somebody has to see, so the gross eye should be there, and then the subtle eye, the subtle sense organ should be there, and then the sense devta should be merciful. Sun god. If sun is not there, what's the use of eyes? And then another example is given when the gross organ. So this is the one example. So when the gross sense organ and the subtle sense organ are incapable, then one cannot see. Similarly, what is death? When the physical body the place where the perception occurs, the gross body, it becomes incapable of perceiving the outside world. That is death. I cannot see the world now. My gross organ has stopped working. That is death. And what is birth? When one starts viewing the physical body as oneself, that is birth. So simple understanding. One example is given here. Prabhupada writes, when one says, I see, this means he sees with his eyes or with his spectacles. He sees with the instrument of sight. If the instrument of sight is broken or becomes diseased or incapable of acting, then he also ceases to act. Similarly, in this material body, as long as the soul is acting, the material body and in this material body at present moment, this living soul is acting. And when the material body, due to incapability of function, ceases, he also ceases to perform his reactionary activities. So basically, death means when my external body stops working, when my gross body stops working, that is death. Till the time the gross body when the gross body starts working, that is birth. Because at that time of death, what happens? The soul, along with the subtle body, leaves the body and goes to the next body. The gross body has stopped working. That is death. And when the subtle body and the soul enters the another body, that is birth. So that is how simple understanding is given, which we have heard many times. तस्मान् न कार्य संत्रासो न कार्पण्यं न संभ्रमः बुद्ध्वा जीवगतिं धीरो मुक्तसङ्गश्चरेदिह. Translation.
Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give way to exaggerations in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose.
Now, what one should do and what one should not do. Understanding that birth and death are realities, one should understand that actually for soul there is no birth or death. So what one should do, one should not be horrified. One should not become fearful. And one should not become miserable. One should not become eager to enjoy. One should not give way to exaggeration in enjoying. Okay, I don't know what's going to happen after death, so therefore enjoy now only. वो भी नहीं करना है. Oh, one should not become fearful that, oh, I will die. That also should not be done. So what should be done? Understanding the real cause, realizing the true nature, one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. These are the do's and the don'ts. ये करना है, ये नहीं करना है. What we are not supposed to do, one should not become fearful. मरने वाले, मरने वाले, मरने वाले. अरे नहीं नहीं, वो भी नहीं करना है. और अरे enjoy life, मरने वाले, मजा करो. You know? Just like there was a famous serial in that they showed the uh, actor, the hero, who was diagnosed with terminal disease, and the doctors told you are about to die in 3 months. So क्या करना है 3 महीने में? So this hero decided, like, okay, I'll go to all the wonderful places in the world. That's how the whole serial was made. Every week he would go to different place. So that's how people they should not become so much obsessed that मरने वाले ना मजा करो, try your best to enjoy before you die. No, no, वो भी नहीं करना है. What we are supposed to do? नामान्यनन्तस्य हतत्रपा पठन् गुह्यानि भद्राणि कृतानि च स्मरन् गां पर्यटन् तुष्टमनागतस्पृह कालं प्रतीक्षन् विमदो विमत्सरा. Roam around in the world free of attachment. You know, this verse is a beautiful verse from first canto, fifth chapter. Prabhupada writes, this verse describes the life of a sadhaka in a nutshell. This is 1-6, sorry, it is sixth verse, sixth chapter, 1-6-26. Very, very wonderful verse. This verse says, Namani anantasya hatatrapa. So as previous verse we were discussing, it says one should roam around free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. Narad Muni was doing that. What he was doing? Dham Paryatan. He was moving everywhere. He's traveling all through the world. And what he was doing? Namani Anantasya was chanting the names of unlimited Lord, Hatatrapa, free from all the formalities of the world, Pathan, remembering, reading, hearing the pastimes of the Lord, which are very, very auspicious, Bhadrani, and Tushtamanayo, satisfied. Gataspriya, no material desires. And he was waiting for the time to come. That is a sadhaka. While staying in the world, we should be careful not to get affected by the world. Just wait for the time to come. And two things we are supposed to do. Damparyatan Tushtamanagatasudha Kalam. While waiting for the time to come, time to leave the body, two things we have to do. Vimadu and Vimatsara. Vimada means
अरे ये बॉक्स
as this verse says, Vimada means we should not be proud and we should not be envious. While being in the world, we'll see some people having more than what we have. We should not become envious of them. And sometimes we will have more than what others have. We should not become proud. So these two things are very important. Vimado and Vimatsara. So therefore this verse says one should roam around in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. Prabhupada writes, a sane person who has understood the philosophy of life and death is very upset upon hearing of the horrible, hellish condition of life in the womb of mother or outside the mother. But one has to make a solution to the problems of life. A sane man should understand the miserable condition of this material body without being unnecessarily upset. He should try to find out if there is a remedy. Rag and Dvesha. They are two sides of the same coin. If somebody is too attached or if somebody is too disgusted, they are both not conducive for practice of bhakti. Bhagavadvesh vimuktaestu vishayan indriyesh charan atmavashya vidheyatma prasadamari. If one is free from these two desires, aversion and attachment, he becomes qualified for getting mercy of the Lord. Because these two desires, they are not conducive for bhakti, they are conducive for jnana. This dvesha or being disgusted with the material world, That is qualification for jnana. If one is too upset with the material world, he cannot practice devotional service. A devotee is not disgusted. Na nirvinna, na ati sakta, bhakti yoga se siddhita. Anyone remembers who said I am disgusted with the material world? Anyone remembers that? We've heard some time back only. निर्विन्ना नितरान भूमन असद इंद्रिय दर्शनात् येन संभाव्यमानेन प्रपन्नान्धो. uh, so Devavati, she is saying like this: Nirvinna, I am disgusted with the material world. I am disgusted with how one is suffering because of asad indriya darshanat, because of attachment to sense objects. We should not become unnecessarily upset. Remedial measures can be understood when one associates with persons who are liberated. One should try to find out the remedy rather than getting upset. Try to find the remedy. And the remedy will come only when one associates with people who are liberated. And then Prabhupada writes how even Mayavadis, they say that one has to take shelter of Narayan. Narayan Paro Avyakta. Narayan is beyond the material creation. One has to take shelter of Narayan. And Bhagavatam also confirms what is liberation. Liberation means mukti hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthiti. That is mukti. When one is situated in his original constitutional position, jivera swarupa hoy krishnera nityadas, that is mukti. Mukti doesn't mean we have to give up our body. One can be in this body and stay liberated. Ihayasya harerdasya karmana manasagira nikhilashopi avasthasu jivan mukta sauchyate. One can be liberated while being in this body. Otherwise, Prabhupada writes that artificial renunciation is not conducive. One can be in the palace and stay renounced, or one can stay under a tree and still get attached. This is my tree. As Prabhupada would tell, I was in Vrindavan, I was living in a small room of Radha Damodar temple, and now my disciples have given me palatial buildings, palaces. And he says, Krishna tested me twice. Once by giving everything to me, once by taking away everything from me, and the second time by giving everything to me. So we should not become proud, whether one is living in the palace or in the forest under a tree. Prabhupada writes, if one renounces his palatial building and goes to a forest, there is actually no renunciation. For palatial building is property of the Supreme and the forest is also property of the Supreme. मतलब आपका था ही क्या जो आपने छोड़ा? If somebody is passing by a big very big bank and he says, I renounce this bank. तो आप क्या बोलेंगे? आपका है ही नहीं तो आप renounce क्या कर रहे हैं? Is this your bank? I renounce this bank. And nothing in this world belongs to you. What are you renouncing? So what we have to renounce is this mentality that I can renounce something because nothing belongs to us. Prabhupada writes, renunciation necessitates renouncing the false understanding that one can lord it over material nature. We have to just renounce our false ego that I can be the controller because nothing belongs to us. When one renounces this false, renounces the puff, he is also God. That is real renunciation. Otherwise, there is no meaning of renunciation. You have to just give up the false attitude, false ego. Then Prabhupada writes that is Falgu Vairagya. If somebody is just giving up external things but not using them in Krishna service, that is Falgu Vairagya. Okay, now he continues in the next verse. Samyak darshanaya, last verse of this chapter. Samyak darshanaya buddhya yoga vairagya yuktaya maya virachite loke charenyasya kalevaram. Translation.
Endowed
Endowed
with
Somebody get the translation, please.
Endowed with right vision and straightened by devotional service and a pessimistic attitude towards the material identity, one should relegate his body to his illusory world through his reasons. Thus, one can be unconcerned with this material world.
So that is the conclusion which he is giving. With proper vision, reason, devotion, and detachment, one should move out. One should have the vision, the reason, devotion, and renunciation. These are the four things he is describing here. One should have endowed with right vision, strengthened by devotion, and pessimistic attitude towards material identity. That means detachment or renunciation. Nothing belongs to me. And one should relegate his body. Relegate means one should give up his attachment to the body through his reason. So that is how a devotee should use his intelligence. It is not that bhakti is all sentiment. Bhakti involves sentiments, but a devotee is not sentimental. The devotee uses reasoning, his understanding, his right type of vision, and then gradually he crosses over. So Prabhupada writes, it is sometimes misunderstood that if one has to associate with people engaged in devotional service, he will not be able to solve the economic problem. Some people think like that. Oh, we will not be able to maintain, take care of the family, and Krishna doesn't provide and takes away everything. To answer this argument, it is described here that one has to associate with liberated persons, not directly physically, but by understanding. Not just साथ में बैठे हो गया संग लिया नहीं understand what they're speaking. Use your intelligence to understand the philosophy, understand the logic, understand how to solve the problems of life. Samyak darshanaya buddhya. Samyak means to see perfectly. Samyak darshana. And then one has to renounce the world. So that's how Kapil he is describing such wonderfully various things about getting detached from the world and going to the next world. After describing this, he continues his description in the 32nd chapter, Entanglement in Fruitive Activities. So far, Devaki had asked about the path of bhakti, and Kapil has described that path of bhakti in 29th chapter in great detail. Then he described about the time factor also there. Then she had asked about the nature of the birth and death of the jivas. Kapil has described that also. And he is describing that nature of the birth and death of the jivas. And this last chapter, he has described the nature of the birth and death of the jivas in 30, 31, and 32, three chapters. So 32 chapters, this last chapter, he is describing how by returning in this world by practice of sakama karma, if one comes to the practice of devotional service and still maintains the attachments, Then it is a very, very sad proposal. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes in the beginning what is being described here in the 32nd chapter. After speaking about returning to the world by sakam karma and not returning to the world by nishkam karma, Kapila criticizes those who are not devotees. He again continues the description for those who are sinful living entities. In between, he described the condition of a devotee jiva who could not perfect his life. Again, he has entered the womb of the mother. He described the situation of that devotee also. Now he is continuing the discussion and he is describing what happens to a person who does not take to devotional service, continues to practice sakam karma yoga. Earlier he described sinful activities. Now he describes there are some people who will not do sinful activity. In the 30th chapter, he described the destination of sinful living entity. Will go to hell, then will go to lower species, then he'll come to human body. In 32nd chapter, he will be describing those people who are not practicing sinful life. They will act according to prescribed, Vedic activities only, but they will still maintain material desires. They will not practice unalloyed devotion. Unka kya hota hai? They continue to enjoy the results of dharma, artha, kama, moksha. There are many people in the world we see like this. They will be very pious, they'll not be sinful, but they'll not practice devotional service. So he will be describing about those people in the 32nd chapter. Entanglement in fruitive activities. It is not adverse fruitive activity. The 30th chapter was adverse fruitive activity. That means sinful karma. In 32nd, he says it is not adverse, it is fruitive now. It is according to the Vedas. So Kapil Dev continues. Kapila Uvacha Athayo Grahamedhiyan Dharmani
तथैव
Vav
धर्माणि वा गृहे
Kamam Artham Cha Dharman Swan
कामर्थं च धर्मान् स्वान्
Vartitan.
योक्ति भूयां विवर्तितं तान्. The personality of Godhead said, the person who lives in the center of household life derives material benefits by performing religious rituals and thereby he fulfills his desire for economic development and sense gratification. Again and again he acts the same way.
So now this living entity who is not sinful, who is practicing Vedic lifestyle, what he does, Yaha Dogbhi, the word used is Dogbhi. Dogbhi means he is enjoying. What he is enjoying? Kamam, Artham, and Dharmam. He enjoys Dharma, Artha, Kam. He enjoys all that. He is not giving up. Dharma projita gaitavattara paramo nirvatsaranam sadam. That is Bhagavatam. That is pure devotion. But now this materialistic pious person, what he does? He enjoys Dharma, Artha, Kama as Griha Medhiyan. Griha Medhi. The difference between Griha Medhi and Grihastha. Grihastha means Krishna is center. Griha Medhi means my house is in center. While staying in his house, Evavasan Grihe, while staying in his house, he performs all the fruitive activities again and again. Bhuya Piparati Tan. He keeps on enjoying, keeps on acting, keeps on doing all those sinful activities, not sinful, fruitive activities again and again. He'll not live a sinful life, but he will live a pious life. He'll live a pious, materialistic life. He's not called as Grihamedhi. So that's the difference between Grihamedhi and Grihastha. Grihamedhi lives according to dharma, but his goal is to enjoy sense gratification. He will not do anything against dharma. But the goal is मजा करना है भाई कैसे मजा कर सकते हैं sense gratification करना अच्छा I don't want to do sinful things. I want to do sense gratification in pious way. They will serve sadhus to get punya, not devotion. That's the difference between Grihamedhi and Grihastha. As a practicing devotee also, we should be careful why we are doing some devotional activities. What is the reason? What's the purpose? If we have, just like this happens in the new devotees, when they become devotees, they will invite all the devotees at their home, they'll serve them, but because they're not so mature in their understanding, they will say, अरे घर में आए साधु आ रहे हैं डिवोटीज आ रहे हैं इतना अच्छा पुण्य का काम हो गया चलो because they are not so uh, well versed in the understanding of Krishna consciousness. So, as practitioners of bhakti, we should also be careful. This tendency of sense gratification creeps in, if not in gross way, in subtle way. पूजा लाभ प्रतिष्ठा आदि उपशाखागण निषिद्धाचार कुटिनाटी जीव हिंसन पूजा लाभ प्रतिष्ठा आदि उपशाखागण. These are the creepers. We should be very, very careful to avoid. Name, fame, profit, adoration, distinction. Because these things come in the life of devotees. Krishna wants to give them. That is just like when you work in any company, you get a salary and you get some perk and benefits. We are also working for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. On his behalf, we are trying to preach, we are trying to serve him. We are getting a salary and we are getting some perks and benefits also. What is the salary we are supposed to get? There is only one salary. Dasapari vetan more deha prem dhan. Only one vetan. Salary means the vetan. Just give me 1 minute. I'll just change my data. So a devotee should be very, very careful. We will get all these things. We may get. And Krishna gives it to his devotees. We'll get what are we expecting by the practice of our devotional service? We want Krishna prema. Dasupari vetan more deho prema dhan. Prema ratan bina daridra jivana dasupari vetan more deho prema dhan. But along with this practice of devotional service, along with this vetan of prema dhan, we will get so many other things also. We'll get fame, we'll get some respect in the devotee community, and we may get some profit also. We should be very careful. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes in Madhurya Kadambini, there are 4 types of anarthas. Dushkrit Uttha Anartha, Sukrit Uttha Anartha, Radha Uttha Anartha, and Bhakti Uttha Anartha. It says there are some anarthas which arise because of past life sinful activities.
Your
Dushkrit,
voice is breaking.
It's not there, Prabhu. Audio is not there.
Hare Krishna, am I audible?
Now you are audible.
Okay. So I just switched off my video. It seems there is some problem with my internet. So we were discussing uh, in this path of devotional service how one should be careful. And I was describing Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Madhurya Kadambini. He describes there are 4 types of anartha. There are some anarthas which come because of the past life sinful activities. They are called as Dushkrit Uttha. The result of those activities is desire for all this lust, anger, greed increases. There are some anarthas which arise because of the past life. That is called as Sukritutta anartha. Sukritutta anartha means the desire to enjoy things in this world increases in a pious way. There is something called as Aparadha Utta Anartha. Aparadha Utta Anartha means the desire which arises because of the offenses while practicing devotional service. The desire for bhakti goes down. Nama Aparad, Seva Aparad, Vaishnava Aparad, all that. The 4th type of offense is very interesting. 4th type of anartha is very interesting. He says Bhakti Utta Anartha. Some anartha arises because of the practice of bhakti. What are those anarthas? He says it is not because of the practice of bhakti, it is because of the gifts which are given by Krishna to a practitioner on the path of bhakti. Some fame will come, some profit will come, respect will come. And because we have those anarthas, we are not purified of those anarthas. So the desire for all these things will increase. So that's how, we should be careful. Otherwise, this Bhakti Lata beach will be choked up by all these other weeds of desires. We have to keep hearing the importance of being a servant. If we are not hearing regularly that we are supposed to serve in a humble way, on the pretext of serving the Lord, we may start exploiting the resources. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would tell, some people are Griha Medhi, somebody can be Matha Medhi also. And, some people somebody may be staying in the house and trying to enjoy the resources. Somebody may be staying in temple and try to enjoy the resources of the temple. You should be very careful. The mood of being a servant, taking the least possible, giving the most. Because the position of being the servant is the highest. That's why Advaita Acharya, it comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he considers Mahaprabhu as his master. Chaitanya Das Mui, Chaitanya Das, Chaitanya Das Tar Das Anudas. So he is telling again and again that I am servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna Das Abhimane Yananda Sindhu Koti Brahma Sukhnahi Tara Eka Bindu. Krishna Das Abhiman. The pride of being servant of Krishna, it gives the ocean of happiness. Koti Brahma Sukha Nahi Tare Ek Bindu. In front of this happiness of being servant of Krishna, Brahmananda is insignificant. So that is the mood we have to always develop, always focus on. Otherwise, this mentality of enjoyment may come in the devotional service also. It is so very deeply rooted. You may start exploiting the resources. You may start hankering for the position, the respect which comes with the position. again and again, our acharyas, they tell, Kaviraj Goswami describes how one should be very, very humble. We should never ever demand the respect. दास्य भावे आनंदित पारिषद गण विधि भव नारद्वार शुक सनातन. Kaviraj Goswami says in this dasya bhav, everyone is happy. All the associates of the Lord are happy. Narada, Shukdev Goswami, Sport Kumaras, all the associates of the Lord, they are all happily dancing, singing. Ei mata nache koreksha, ei mata gaye nache. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I don't know why this is going and going. My network is good here, but anyways, we'll continue. So all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are always in this mood of being servant. Eimatto Gayanache Parayatahas Loke Upadeshaho Chaitanya Das. They're always telling, please become servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this Griha Medhi, although he is staying in the family, following the Vedic Dharma, but the goal is enjoyment. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, share the screen. So Briha Medhi is one who wants to remain in the material world. His activity is to enjoy material benefits by performing religious rituals for economic development and thereby ultimately satisfy the senses. He does not want anything more. He works very hard throughout his life to become very rich and eat nicely and drink. So such people, they will work hard to enjoy ultimately. If not in this world, in the next world. Kriyate Bhulaya Sham. Bhagavad Gita says they will work very hard. They will do lots of yakya here. But the goal is they want to go to the heavenly planets. So Prabhupada writes, by giving some charity, he can go to higher planets, but he does not want to stop the repetition of birth and death. He is called as Grihamethi. And Grihastha means he lives with family, wife, children, but he has no attachment for them. He prefers to live in family life rather than or sannyasi, but his chief aim is to achieve self-realization. So everybody has a different way of practicing Krishna consciousness. Somebody may want to become renunciant, somebody may want to continue and stay in the house of life. But the goal is same. The goal is self-realization. So here Kapila Dev is speaking about the Griha Methi. They will do all pious activities, सब धर्म का काम करेंगे, लेकिन the purpose is enjoyment. But what are they doing? Punah punascharvita charvanana. Okay, he continues. Sachapi bhagavad dharma
स चापि भगवद्धर्मात्
kama mudha paranmukha
काममूढः परामुखः
devan
यत्यते कर्तुभिर्देवान्
shraddhayanvitaha.
पितृंश्च श्रद्धयान्वितः. Such a person are ever bereft of devotional service due to being too attached to the sense gratification, and therefore, although they perform various kinds of sacrifices and take great vows to satisfy the demigod and fathers, they are not interested in Krishna consciousness, devotional service.
So what they do is they are kama mudha. They are bewildered by desires. Kama mudha. The second line says kama mudha Kamamudha paranmukha. They want to enjoy, they reject worship of the Lord. Paranmukha, they are not serving Krishna, they have not turned their face towards Krishna, they are paranmukha, they have turned their face away from Krishna. They have turned their face away from Bhagavad Dharma. Bhagavad Dharma means worship of Krishna. So what they do instead, they also do very faithfully, श्रद्धयान्विता. क्या करते हैं श्रद्धा से? यजते, वो भी यज्ञ करते हैं, वो भी वर्शिप करते हैं. किसका? देवताओं का, पितरियों का. They worship devatas, they worship forefathers, they do big sacrifices. कामैस्तैस्तै ऋतज्ञाना प्रपद्यन्त्यन्न देवता तं तं नियमास्थाय प्रकृत्या नियता स्वयं. Prabhupada writes that. Prabhupada writes a very strong statement. This kind of so-called pious and religious man is the result of impersonalism. Why it is like that? The impersonalists maintain that Supreme Lord has no form and one can imagine any form he likes for his benefit and worship in that way. That is impersonalism. When somebody tries to serve any devta, thinking that everything is one, so ultimately I have to become God only. I am God. I can worship any God. They believe in Panchopasana, worship 5 devtas. They worship Durga, Shiva, Vishnu, Ganpati, and Surya. But the goal is they want to become God. They want to become that supreme. So ultimate understanding is I want to enjoy. कैसे भी enjoyment चाहिए मेरे को. So all these materialistic men, they also say, "Are any devta you worship, it is all same." So Prabhupada writes about them, how these type of people, they worship any devtas just for sense gratification. Prabhupada writes, some people they worship Kali because they want to eat meat. This is first class rascaldom. They are misled. So that is the philosophy of materialistic people. Do whatever you want, but you do worship some devtas. So that is how the impersonalism has spread. In India, uh, there was a Western author. His name was Miller. He wrote a book called as Logic. In that book, he described the world from a very rational point of view. He said you can predict the movements of the sun and the moon. So, what is the point of accepting them as gods? They are like now natural laws. And he described everything in this world in terms of logic and rationalism. He removed divinity in his writings. And many of the Western philosophers, they are following this rationalistic theory that everything is in this world is governed by natural laws. What's the use of accepting any devata? And slowly, this rationalistic theory is coming in India also. Some of the scholars, they have started interpreting the scriptures from rational point of view, because Western view is authoritative and that's what they feel. Western view is very authoritative view, so we'll accept whatever is coming from Western world. So all the activities of the devatas, they reduce it. They call nowadays these words are very common. Energy. It's all energy in the world. We'll attract the energy. You know, they remove personalism from the picture. They remove divinity. So that's how the impersonalism has become more and more popular. And then In India, the freedom fighting movement started. So what they had to do was they had to bring everyone under one umbrella, all the freedom fighters. So what is the underlying principle? We have to bring them under a principle of one God. And because different Indians are worshipping different gods, there will be disunity. So there is one God, you are God, and then impersonalism is brought in picture. It became more famous. So that's how impersonalism has spread in India so much. That's the history of impersonalism in India. So Prabhupada writes, this is first class rascaldom. Bhagavad Gita does not accept such rascaldom. It is clearly stated that such methods are meant for persons who have lost their intelligence. Okay, he continues. तच्छ्रद्धया क्रान्तमतिः
तच्छ्रद्धया क्रान्तमतिः
पितृदेवव्रतपुमान्
पितृदेवव्रतः पुमान्
गत्वा चान्द्रमसंलोकम्
गत्वा चान्द्रमसं लोकम्
सोम्पा पुनरेष्यति.
सोमपा पुनरेष्यति. Such materialistic persons, attracted by sense gratification and devoted to the forefathers and demigods, can be elevated to the moon, where they drink an extract of Soma plant. They again return to this planet.
So the further description of such materialistic Grihamedis are described. Tashraddhaya akrantamati, overtaken by such faith. Akrantamati, they are overcome by faith in Devatas. What they do? Pitri Deva Vrata. They worship Pitris and they worship forefathers and Devatas. And by worship of these forefathers and Devatas, what they can achieve? Gatva Chandramasam Lokam, they can go to moon planet. They can drink somras and they can enjoy. बट लेकिन क्या होगा, पुण्य खत्म हो जाएगा तो पुनरेष्यति, दोबारा इधर ही आएंगे. क्षीणे पुण्य मर्त्य लोकम विशंति. So but they are attracted by the all the descriptions of the heavenly planets. Oh, you will enjoy there. That's why Krishna told Arjun, please go beyond these Vedas. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigунयो Bhavarjuna. Just go beyond, because the Vedas, they deal only with enjoyment. Dharma, Artha, Kama. So go beyond them. Prabhupada writes, one can be promoted to the moon planet by doing pious activities, but till the time the pious activities remain, they stay there, then again they come back. Life on moon is 10,000 years. So how is it calculated? 1 day is equal to 6 months on this planet. 1 day of Devtas is equal to 6 months on this planet. So that's how they live for 100 years. But ultimately, they have to come back. Prabhupada quotes this verse. Now, he continues, what happens? Yada chahindra shayyayam
यदा चाहीन्द्रशय्यायां
dasano harihi
Ete
चेतन्तनो
Nantasano
हरिः
Hari
tada lokalayam yanti
तदा
Tada
लोकालयं
Lokalayam Yanti
taite grahamedina.
तते
Taite Gruha
गृहमेधिनाम्.
Medhinam.
All
All
the
the
planets are
planets of the materialistic persons, including all the heavenly planets such as the moon, are vanquished when the Supreme Person of Godhead Hari goes to his beds of serpent, which is known as Anantashesh.
So what happens? In this way, they keep on going to heavenly planets, again coming back. They keep on wandering in the cycle of birth and death. At the end of the life, at the end of the day of Brahma, what happens? They the water of Garbhoda ocean starts rising. Anantashesh starts emitting fire. And all the lower three planetary systems are submerged in the water of Garbhoda ocean. That's how they get destroyed. That is what is described. Tada lokalayam yanti tayete grahamedhinam. They are all vanquished. They may go to higher planetary systems, again come back. They may live for hundreds and thousands and millions of years, maybe. What's the result? Again, they'll be destroyed. Brahma Bhuvanaloka Punaravartino Arjuna. Prabhupada quotes this. Everywhere, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi will be there. Only by going to the spiritual world, one can be free from this. Prabhupada never misses a chance to give the ultimate solution. Nickling it as Prabhupada in the purport describes there are two kinds of dissolution. 11th canto describes there are four kinds of dissolution. Nitya Pralay, Naimittika Pralay, Prakritika Pralay, and Atyantika Pralay. Nitya Pralay means something which is some dissolution happens every moment. Some cells in the body are getting destroyed, something around us are getting destroyed. That is Nitya Pralay. Naimittika Pralay means the Pralay which happens at the end of the day of Brahma. Then Prakritik Pralay happens at the end of the life of Brahma. When entire universe gets destroyed. At the end of the day of Brahma, lower three planets are destroyed. Bhu, Bhuva, Swarg. Swarg tak sab dub jata hai. But there is something called as Atyantika Pralay. Atyantika Pralay means when the false ego is destroyed and the jiva gets liberation. So, Prabhupada writes two of them. He describes about Naimittika and Prakritika. Okay, next verse. Ye swadharmana dukyanti
ये सर्वधर्माननुदुह्यन्ति
धीरा कामार्थ हेतवे
धीरा
Dhira
कामार्थहेतवे
Kamarthetave
निसंगा निस्त कर्माणा
Nisangha
निसङ्गानस्तकर्मणा
Nishkarmana
शुद्ध चेतसः.
शान्तशुद्धचेतसा.
Suddhachetasa.
Those who are intelligent and are of purified consciousness are completely satisfied in Krishna consciousness. Freed from the modes of material nature, they do not act for sense gratification. Rather, since they are situated in their own occupational duties, they act as one is expected to act.
So now in the next three verses, he is describing how a Nishkam Karma Yogi can attain Sayujya Mukti. Nishkam Karma Yogi can become liberated. So after describing those who are Sakam Karmis, now Kapil Dev starts describing who is a Nishkam Karmi. So these are all still under purview of activities. Some people are acting for results, some people are acting not for results. Nishkam Karma. So what will happen to them? This verse says, Ye swadharman na duhyanti. Na duhyanti means they do not take the results. Duhyanti means they don't draw the results of their karma. Swadharman na duhyanti. They are dhira. They are very sober, intelligent. They do not act for kama artha hetave. They do not act for sense gratification. They are nisanga. They are beyond the modes. They are nyasta karmanaha. They are nyasta karmana means they are free from all the. They have actually given up the fruitive activities. They are prashanta and they are shuddha chetasa. They are peaceful. They are purified. So such people They are acting in renounced consciousness. Prabhupada gives the example of Arjun, who had the consciousness of Nisanga and Nyasta Karmana. He was not working for his own sense gratification, he was working for the satisfaction of Krishna. Prabhupada gives the example of Arjun. He was Kshatriya. He was not working for himself. He fought not for his sense gratification but for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Such people are called Nisanga. They are free from the modes influence. They are Shuddha Chetasa. They are Nyasta Karmana. So all that he is describing here. Putting oneself in that position of eternal worship, eternal servitorship to the Lord and working for Him perpetually, one actually becomes completely satisfied. Prabhupada is emphasizing the word uh, Shuddha Chetasa, and the last verse is Prashanta. He's peaceful. He has no desire for sense gratification. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakaliya Shanta Krishna Bhakta Nishakama Ateva Shanta. The more one tries to get things in the world, the more he'll be disturbed. Either a karmi or a jnani or a yogi. They want something, so they're disturbed. But devotee is not desiring anything for his own satisfaction. That is the difference between ordinary consciousness and Krishna consciousness. Next verse. Nivritti dharma nirata
Nivritti
Nivritti
dharma nirata
dharma
nirmam nirahankrita
nirmama
Nirmam
nirahankritaha
nirhankata
swadharmaptena satvena
sadharmaptena
swadharmaptena
satvena
satvena
parishuddhena chetasa.
parishuddhena chetasa.
parishuddhena chetasa.
By executing one's occupational
Dena
duty,
Chetasa
acting with detachment and without a sense of proprietorship or a false egoism, one is posted in one's constitutional position by dint of complete purification of consciousness. And by thus executing so called material duties, he can easily enter into the kingdom of God.
Read the next verse also. Suryadvarena te yanti
सूर्यद्वारेण ते
Tare
यं
te yanti
purusham shvatomukam
purusham
पुरुषं
shvato
Purusham
mukham
Svato
विश्वतो
Mukham
prakritim
परावरेकं प्रकृतिं
Parasena Prakritim
स्योपत्यंत भावनम
Asto
स्वपत्यन्तं
anta bhavanam
Bhavanam
through the path of illumination, and such liberated persons approach the complete personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of the material and spiritual worlds, and is the supreme cause of their manifestation and resolution.
So these two verses, he's describing the yogis who attain actually liberation. So what they do is nivritti dharma nirata, engrossed in the actions of detachment, nirmama, no sense of possessiveness, nirahankrita, no false ego, swadharmaptena satvena, having attained sattva by swadharma. Swadharma means by practicing prescribed duties. So that means these people, they have practiced sakam karma yoga and now they are practicing nishkam karma yoga. They are purified already. Parishuddhena chetasa, they have purified their consciousness completely. Such people, what they do after completely getting purified, if you remember the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there are two paths described, the path of light and path of darkness. The path of light is described here. Surya Dvarena Te Yanti. You know, the path of light is Uttarayan, path of darkness is Dakshinayan. So the yogis, they prefer to leave their body in Uttarayan because that is the conducive path for going to Brahman. Agni Jyotiraha Shukla Shanmasa Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Brahma Vidojana. The path of light is through the Agni, the path of the deity of fire, the deity of Surya, the deity of the day. All those deities, they support the movement of the yogi to enter the Brahman. So that is what is described here. So this Nishkam Karma Yogi ultimately can enter Brahman. Purusham Vishwato Mukham means he can attain the Lord. That Lord is not the personal form, that is the impersonal form. Paravaresham Prakritim, that Lord who is the controller of Para Avara Prakriti, and Asyotpatti Anta Bhavanam. He is the cause of this universe. So Prabhupada describes that also. And Prabhupada, he focuses on this word very, very devotion.
Nivritti.
Just a minute, Guruji, I'll just explain this. Surya Dvarena means by illuminated path. This illuminated path is devotional service. Prabhupada never gives a chance to get confused. अच्छा अभी क्या करें अभी गाने को फॉलो करना है क्या सूर्य उदाहरण हम भी जाते हैं चलो नो Prabhupada makes it very clear भक्ति करना है और कुछ नहीं करना है भाई yes Prabhu.
And Dandat Pranam, Prabhuji. So this yogi who is described here, he will perform Nitya Naimitya karma. He will follow Varnashram duties, but he will not do any Kamya karma. Is that meaning about this Nishkam Karma Yogi? Because the Swadharma is performing Swadharma with
Yes,
detachment.
he's still attached to karma. He will do the karma but not fruitive activity.
So that means he's not Kamya karma, he will not do. Like anything which is, you know? So he
Yeah,
will perform the Varnashram duties. No?
yeah. Nishkam Karma Yogi continues to perform his uh, Varnashram duties, but he will not do anything for personal sense gratification,
Mm.
nothing for his own satisfaction. That is
Mm.
Nishkam Karmi. He's still attached to
He-
work. He cannot give up
mm.
working.
His destination is only he is planning for only liberation, na Prabhuji.
Yeah, Nishkam Karma Yoga, the result is Sayujya Mukti only.
Mm.
Goal of Nishkam Karma Yoga is Sayujya. So ultimately, a grihastha, after living a life of Sakam Karma, then Nishkam Karma, ultimately he gives up. He becomes a jnani. He becomes a renunciant. And the mentality is, I want to enter into Brahman. Because that's a gradual progress from Sakam to Nishkam to ultimately Gyan. And that will ultimately lead to Brahman only. But if this
Mm.
Nishkam Karma Yogi gets a devotee in his life, then he will start practicing bhakti. Then he will go
Mm.
to Goloka or Vaikuntha.
Mm.
So Prabhupada writes in the sixth verse, Nivritti Dharma Nirata. What is Nivritti Dharma? Constantly engaging in executing religious activities for detachment. There are two kinds of dharma, pravritti and nivritti. Pravritti means the path of enjoyment. By enjoying dharma artha kama, ultimately one gets liberated. But nivritti means practicing devotional service right in the beginning, focusing on bhakti, focusing on detachment. So that is what Prabhupada writes. And then in the seventh verse, Prabhupada focuses what is the Surya Dvarena Teyanti? That is the path of devotional service. It is advised in the Vedas not to pass through the darkness, but to pass through sun. That is Dakshinayan and Uttarayan, the path of light and the path of darkness. Agni Jyoti Raha Shukla Sanmasa Uttarayanam. And Dhumo Ratri Tatha Krishna Shanmasha Dakshinayanam, the path of light and the path of darkness. It is recommended here that by traversing the illuminated path, one can be freed from contaminations of the modes and one can enter We have read this in the second canto in great detail. Second canto, first chapter only described that the path of attached yogi and a detached yogi. The path of attached yogi is krama mukti. वो धीरे धीरे he'll go to all the devta planets, and then ultimately he'll go to Brahma, and then he'll stay there, and then he'll get liberated with Brahmaji. But the person who has no attachments, he can directly go to Brahman. So Prabhupada writes the words Purusham Vishwato Mukham means the Supreme Lord. So actually Purusham Vishwato Mukham means technically speaking, that is, he enters the Brahman. But Prabhupada is giving a very devotional purport here.
Your voice is breaking.
Okay, so anyways, we'll stop here. We'll continue next time from verse number 8, where Kapil Dev will describe